From the John DeVita Broadcast Center, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Wednesday, September the 13th, the year 2017. And now here they are with their big smile and a happy face, Jim and Rich.
Hey, not bad considering we're doing this at 4:30 in the afternoon instead of 11 o'clock.
Yeah, a little bit of a change.
And I've spent the day doing accounting work.
Hey,
All
right, Jim, kick
Not
it off.
bad, not bad.
What are we going to talk about here? I thought when we talked on the phone.
Well, first of all, I wanted to ask you, since I saw Kevin had posted some pictures and video about the dedication of the Donald Bowman Bridge. Did you get to that today?
I didn't, but Ray, two people I know and have talked to since, Ray Murphy, who's our veterans coordinator for the village, and then Bob Morozek, who at one time worked with Myron Petrakis in the History Museum. Both went. They both came back to the Estelle Sieb Center and had pictures. It was they estimated 150 to 200 people there. They had Channel 7 and Channel 9 News there.
I saw that.
And Carol then posted a picture of herself next to the sign, the Donald Bowman, I want to say Memorial Bridge, I would assume.
I think that was the name. I just looked at the pictures that Kevin had posted.
And it was really, said very nice. Both of the guys said that the honor guard, or they did I think the 21 gun salute. You know what I didn't realize, Jim? Sometimes when they do taps, say at the cemetery for a vet or whatever, that it's canned music or something. So this guy was, really played taps.
Oh, okay.
And it was just a nice ceremony. I think Dom Sulemowski, which would make sense. He's the one trustee that's most closest to the veterans type of stuff. Did the opening remarks, and I guess did a nice job, and so it went very well.
That's good. Carol, just to let everyone know, Rich and I went to school with Carol.
Carol Bowman.
Carol Bowman, Don's sister. Don was he the first to die in service from Norwich during Vietnam, or first or second?
Not sure about that.
But that was like 1965, if I remember my history.
Jim, and I don't want to keep this, we could keep it going longer, but I was going to say, I found something out today that I didn't know, that two of his brothers were there at the same time he was.
I was aware of that.
Yeah. Violate the Sullivan rule where they were in the same unit, but what I didn't realize is both of them were wounded in action, and then Don Bowman actually had served the tour in Vietnam, went home, and then decided to go back to sort of, I'll just say it, use my own words, support his brothers, and that's when he was killed. And I was like, wow, that is a tragic thing.
That's a loss, yeah. Where was this bridge at? You didn't come across too well.
Yeah, John.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, I said, where was this bridge at that they dedicated here?
On Irving Park, the bridge that crosses the Des Plaines River just east of River Road.
On Irving?
On Irving.
Oh, I just passed by there about a half hour ago.
Oh, okay.
When you go again, just take a
watch
look.
for the sign.
I saw the sign up there.
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
did see the sign, but I didn't realize what it was. What it was for.
Yes, it was just dedicated today. I understand that State Senator Mulrow was there, State Rep McAuliffe, and I would assume that both of those individuals had something to do with getting the whatever machinery had to get moving in order to get this whole thing done. I would assume that they played their roles in that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, all right. Well, I know we'd talked about it, and that's why we kind of pushed things to this afternoon, because you thought you were going to try to make it.
I was going to try, and then I thought, well, both of us can't leave work, and Ray is the veterans guy, and even though I personally know Carol, I didn't know Don, so I thought, well, you know what, as long as we're represented, that's a good thing. So
Yeah, good.
Yep.
Well, what should we begin with?
Well,
I wanted to get to that first while it was on my
that
mind.
was a good thing.
Yeah.
Although it's sort of how would you say it? Sobers the conversation for a while, because it is a serious
Subject. Once in a while, we have to be serious.
Yeah.
We cannot just go off on our
We can't
falderall.
always be in the toy box.
That's right. Well,
I thought did you want to talk? Hey, I know. I'll kick it off. I'll just say. What's been on my mind, and what I wanted to say sometime during the show, is that Chicago fans, I think, are a bunch of ninnies.
I know you texted me about meatballs in your coffee, in your morning coffee group.
Jim, but it's not just the coffee, guys. I watched half of the Bears game, or better than half, at home on Sunday, and then I went over to Lasers to watch the rest of the game at the bar, and it was a lively crowd, to say the least, and of course a great, really close game. I thought an excellent game, and just to listen to the comments from people, I'm like, Chicago. First off, when you listen to their comments about the Cubs, I'm like, do you really think? I mean, if you've actually followed sports, do you really think that last year is your typical year for any team? What the Los Angeles Dodgers are doing this year.
Well, the Dodgers are dying right now.
They are. And you know what? I mean, Arizona's like within 10 games of them now. They're like 9 back.
And I mean, you've got the A's going, or not the A's, the Indians going for 20 in a row tonight.
So, but my point would be this, Jim. You're not going to have, this Cubs group, this really good young core that we have. They may win multiple championships, but they're not all going to be runaways like they were last year.
No, I've told that to people. I said, good Lord, last year was magic.
It was, and and now it seems like this is expected. And I just saw Rick Morrissey. I didn't read the column because I didn't get a chance to read the paper, but he's dissing the Cubs in today's Sun-Times. And when you think of it, though, I mean, again, I look at it, they lost Contreras for a good lengthy period here.
You're probably not going to get Russell back.
They've been without Russell.
Right.
Lester has some time in the DL. Arrieta's on the DL right now. Hendricks had a long stretch on the DL. I mean, Lackey was on the DL. Yeah, that's four-fifths of your rotation has been on the DL.
This is stuff that you didn't have happen last year.
Jim, let me tell you something. I don't know if you like this or don't like it, but a year ago with our softball team, everything fell into place. We were 9-1. We took the league with no problem. This year, with basically the same team, we end up 5-5. We barely made the playoffs. We made the playoffs the last day of the season, and every week that we were out there, somebody couldn't make it. Somebody had this. And we never got the whole thing together. I don't know if anybody realizes, say a manager like Joe Madden or any manager, you have a sort of a plan in your head, or maybe you got it on paper. And when that gets knocked around, it's hard to get continuity. It's hard to get things rolling in a positive direction. When you see a stop and start season like the Cubs are having, it's not. People were complaining over the weekend. The Brewers sweep them. The Cubs scored what in the series? 2 runs.
2 runs, I think it was. Yeah.
Now it's almost like people take it personal. The Cubs stopped hitting on purpose just to aggravate us. I mean, really? Are you serious?
Does this start to have? I'm not at the point where saying this is starting to feel like a collapse.
No, I don't think there's. I'm
not at that. I'm not at that point yet.
Oh, I don't. But I do see it as okay, we lost it. Do you remember? I was thinking the other day about Ronnie Santo was still alive, and he was doing the games with Pat Hughes. And this had to be 2000 and what was the year of the Bartman thing? Was that 2003?
3.
I think it was that year.
The O'Neill,
they were
the
in,
Brant Brown game.
Yeah, they were in Milwaukee, and I think you correct me, you probably remember it better than I do, but they had a game, looked like it was wrapped up, and Brant Brown was in left and dropped the ball, and I think they ended up losing the game.
They lost the ball game.
And, talk about dismal times in Cubland, that was one that we had in the bag, and a simple fly ball didn't get caught. Okay, we got swept by the Brewers. Guess what, Jim? The Brewers lost last night, and they lost a half a game to us. I don't see this as a collapse. I just think it's going to be probably a race to the wire. We could end up maybe pulling away. We could end up. Hey, Cubs fans, okay, don't get the what were the pills that the Air Force flyers used to take? Don't get the cyanide pills
don't
out
take
yet.
the cyanide.
We may even fall behind before the end of the year.
This could still happen.
But
you got to keep in mind, what have you got? You got 11 games left with the two teams that are chasing you.
Yeah, which could be good or could be bad.
Could be bad. I
would look at it as could be good.
Yeah.
You could pull away from those teams. Jim, let me tell you,
hit the damn ball.
Thank God that the players and the manager are not reacting the way the fans and the media are. Because if they were, then we would be guaranteed to lose.
Yeah,
the panic is unbelievable.
You can't.
And we're still in first.
Yeah. I'm looking at the at an article about now I lost it. I'm looking at an article Paul Sullivan wrote in today's Tribune about how the Cubs have fared in the last 50 years when the playoffs seemed possible. Of course, we go back to 1969.
Sure.
Where that was a complete collapse. 1970, they finished 5 games back when they really kind of just fell apart. I think I kind of put that one out of my mind because I never really thought they were that much in it. In 70. 73. Well, 73 was weird. Wasn't that the year they had to play games after the end of the season? Like the day after the season against the Mets? Because to make up a rainout?
I don't remember.
I think I remember that. They were 2.5 out on September 22nd after Jose Cardinal's triple in the 10th beat the Phillies, but lost 5 of the last 7 to finish 5 games behind the Mets.
Okay.
84, we remember the win the first 2 here and couldn't win one in San Diego. I think the one 89 never bothered me. The fact that they lost the playoffs in 89 because they got beat by a better team. They got beat by the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
They got beat by a better team. 98. 98, I was at the game when they had to play the tiebreaker against the Giants, and won that game. But the Braves beat them in the playoffs. I think the year that really was a collapse was 04. Was 04. They had a chance to make the wild card, and just really stunk out the place. And that was the year Kent Merker and everybody else was blaming Steve Stone and Chip Carey for being negative.
Oh, I don't remember that. Let me ask you this: does any other city indulge in this? What other city where their team is actually in first place in September, almost the middle of September, goes back 50 years to find out about the collapses that that particular team has had?
I think probably the closest would be Boston. There's Boston
I
fans.
can see them doing it.
I think Boston fans would get would get panicky, and what? They've won 3 World Series in the last 11 years, or
now
something like.
they're on a roll, and we could win 3 World Series in the next 11 years also.
Yeah,
Or even maybe more.
Yeah.
I just don't get the mindset. The other thing is, you go up, and the season being 162 games long, there is no perfectly smooth ride. You go up and down regardless of where you are in the standings.
Oh, gosh.
And well, look,
Wasn't it in 05? And I'd have to go back and look that one up. Didn't the Sox go the Sox went 10-17 in the month of September. Sox fans were ready to, slit their wrists.
No, it happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
And they got into the playoffs, and boom, that was it.
Well, there's never any really duplication. Every championship or every playoff run is different, and this one is not last year, obviously. And why are we getting all bent out of shape about it? Again, I have to go back. It's almost like people are taking it personally. Why are the Cubs doing this to us? Really? Or, you think they're doing it to you personally?
It's you only.
Yeah.
It's you only. It's not to anybody else.
Yeah.
I think that, if I looked at this, and I haven't really looked at what the wild card standings would be.
The Cubs would be, I think they would be, let's see, the Cardinals, I think, are 3 back in the wild card. So the Cubs would
3.5. 3.5 right now.
3.5. So the Cubs that would make the Cubs,
one
back?
One back.
One back, so. But that's, because I think the Arizona's up 5 or something.
4.
4?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and Arizona.
I think the only thing that would disappoint me was just not simply not making the playoffs.
Well, I'm not going to be disappointed
No.
either way, to be honest with you, Jim. You know what? I really, my eyes were open last year when they won the World Series, and I think I mentioned this to you either on the air or in when we had a conversation. My whole family's looking at me to see my reaction, and my reaction, was I happy? But, I wasn't going to shed any tears. I wasn't jumping up and down. I was happy. It was a long journey. But I think at that point I realized that I could have actually
I cried my
not ever seen the Cubs win the World Series, and it wouldn't have probably affected my life in one iota.
I cried my eyes out.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's fine. I'm not going to knock that. But I'm just saying, I think at that point I realized, are the Cubs my favorite baseball team? Of course. Am I happy when they win? Yes. But does it really make that much difference in my life? No. So
Not as we've grown older.
no,
We find that other things have taken their place.
for sure.
We'll just look at this, and if something happens, we'll have to tolerate the nonsense that we hear from
Well, how many years
White Sox.
How many
From
years
White
did
Sox
we
fan.
tolerate losing or never winning to begin with? So this is like a big deal? We
Yeah.
won
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah. Now I think the big thing everybody is cheering for, at least on the south side, is I'm just looking at the standings. Right now the Sox are
2.5 back of the Tigers.
no. I'm also looking at where they are in relation to getting the first draft pick next year.
I don't think they care about that.
No, Sox fans do.
Sox fans may, but
Sox
we
fans
don't
do.
even know who that person is.
I know, but Kenny Williams will get in there and screw it up. All right, that's
No,
Whoop,
that's my phone.
Whoop.
Who's calling?
We have a caller.
We have a caller.
We have a caller.
Oh, God. There's somebody we could put. No, I didn't even know who this is. All right. That's
All right,
it.
put it on vibrate or something. So we don't
End of
have-
story.
I thought maybe it was somebody we could put on the air.
That would have been great.
Yeah.
I had a text into Davey Rule. I thought we could put he's always willing to go on the air. but it was nobody that I know. So
Okay. I had all these thoughts today, and I was going to bring. I was going to bring a couple of things, and we were going to talk. I wanted to talk like football predictions and compare the predictions from the Sporting News at the beginning of baseball season. But we'll do that next time because I just left that in my magazine rack at home.
good for you, Jim.
Yeah,
That's
well,
good.
you
You had business to do before you got.
I
here,
had
so
I had other things
you
to
had
do.
other things
I
to
had other
concentrate
things to
on.
do. I mean, my back was bothering me, and if I would have bent over to pick that up, I probably wouldn't have been able to get up.
Well, if we had an I feel sorry for an athlete a segment of this program, I'd
Kevin White.
nominate Mike Lennon.
Oh, I was going to say Kevin White.
Well, Kevin White too, because obviously, just to torment everybody, he's deliberately having his bones broken so that we could all say what a bum Ryan Pace is and what a lousy draft pick it was. So
You know
Ryan
what,
Pace should really be ticked off at Kevin White.
Oh, you know what? I feel sorry for this kid. I did have to laugh because I glanced at Rosenblum's column here, and it begins with Steve Rosenblum today in the Tribune. Here's the thing about what might be Kevin White's annual season-ending injury. You can't say it makes the Bears much worse because you have no idea what kind of a player Kevin White is.
That's true. I
We've
agree
never
with that,
had the opportunity to
to see what he could do.
About the only thing, as I glance through, he says about the only thing that you can be sure of is he doesn't have particularly good hands. Certainly not good enough to make up for the speed that he's lost because of the leg injuries.
How do we know he doesn't have good hands?
Well, at least after Sunday, it didn't look like he had good hands.
Well, I don't know.
But again, everybody's going, oh, he's the biggest draft bust in sports history. How can he be a bust?
Yeah,
A bust would be a guy that you put out there and paid a lot of money, and he did squat for you.
A bust would be that guy from Michigan State, that big offensive tackle,
Tony Mandarich.
Tony Mandarich.
That was a bust.
That would be a bust.
Brian, Oklahoma.
Brian Bosworth.
Bosworth. I would call him a bust. Sam Bowie, going into the NBA, maybe a bust.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sam Bowie, again, was a guy who had injury problems, but he was a solid player even after the injuries.
I'll give you the best bust in any draft.
Who's that?
Len Bias.
Len Bias. Okay. I mean, that's just a pick that never even came to fruition.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
how you wouldn't like? Yeah, that would.
he came.
That would
It
be
went
rough.
up his nose.
Yeah.
Is what it did.
Yeah. No, my guy and Kevin White would be a good one for that award, but Mike Lennon, no matter what this guy does, now that they've got the scent of Trubisky in their noses, he's never going to do enough. And I thought he played a good game on Sunday. I don't think it was his fault that we lost by any stretch. In fact, I wouldn't put the blame on anybody. When you have a shot to win the game all the way up to the end, and you don't do it, okay, you'd be happier if you did it, but you can't ask for anything more than a shot.
Right. Were they out of timeouts near the end?
They were.
Okay.
They were.
Well, I was wondering why they threw 4 times and at least didn't try to run once.
Yeah, if they would have had a timeout, they probably
You
would have
would have had-
definitely made it in because they would have had one running play, which might have scored, but at least put them in a different position on the field than they were.
Yeah.
And if they would have had one timeout, I think then I would say my prediction would be, I think they win the game with no problem.
Yeah. Because I had the game on, and we were doing things around the house. I had the game on TV, so I'd kind of run in when I'd, hear things or kind of keep one ear on it. And we had gone out, and I had was watching the game progress on my phone. But I mean, you passed once, incomplete. You had a stoppage of the clock. Why couldn't you have run next? Of course, then again, if you couldn't come in, you couldn't have gotten in. You might have lost your,
Yeah, you're
you-
not going to get them unpiled quick enough.
You're not going to get them
do anything.
unpiled quick enough to do that. But it might have been worth a shot. I don't fault them for anything, really.
No.
I look at this. I look at this team, and I look at it, and if you look, my comment always on Facebook or something like that was I find a picture of somebody going, not bad, and
No.
that was my view.
No, I think it was obviously there was one big breakdown on defense. Okay,
Yeah.
so and I think it was Jackson
Yeah.
that said,
Yeah.
"Hey, it was a blown coverage." That's, that's what it was.
That was when I was.
Okay.
That was when I was going to bring up.
And okay, he had a blown coverage. I would say this: I heard that the game plan, Vic Fangio said, we're going to shut the run down, and because they have Freeman, who I really was impressed with as a running back. It's the first time I've seen him play, and really good running back, Devontae Freeman. But they said, well, okay, what are you going to do with Julio Jones? He goes, we're going to, we're going to roll the dice and hopefully come up with 7 or 11 or whatever. Julio Jones had a good game, but I don't think he killed us. I think the Bears performed well. I think one of the things that I've not heard anybody say, maybe you listen to talk radio, what I liked is the Bears' offensive and defensive scheme were in sync. The offense helped the defense. The defense had at least 3 times on the field where they had long drives, but that actually, how could you say it? It showed that what the offensive game plan was a wise one, because had the offense had a lot of 3-and-outs with a lot of no time off the clock, the defense would have been on the field even longer. So the fact that the offense was trying to control the ball on the ground with short passes, keep the clock moving, actually did what it was supposed to do for the most part. And I was happy to see that. I thought that considering our wide receiver core is not strong, I thought if you take that in consideration, I think Glenn played really well, because when you don't have the guys where you could throw downfield, and you still can move the team,
When
you're doing a pretty good job.
When you're averaging 5.33 yards per pass attempt, in the nature of the game today, you're not going to win very many games. But then again, when you got nobody who could catch the ball, or at least nobody that you know of yet that's a threat,
No,
you're kind of locked into that point. But you're running the ball well. Tariq Cohen, I just love him.
Yeah, but you know what I would say is I agree. He's a really talented guy, but I hope we don't start to fall in love with Tariq Cohen. When I say we, I mean the Bears' offensive scheme, because he's built to do exactly what they did with him on Sunday.
Yeah.
He's not going to be an every down guy. He needs to be productive when he's in there. They need to make him productive, and they need to be creative to do that. But I would say this, Jim, I think the guys that we have as wide receivers can catch the ball, but I don't think we have anybody who puts the fear or can stretch the defense out.
Who's the long threat? No, at this point in time, you don't.
No. And
at this point, you don't.
That's the problem. And based on that, because the other team knows that, I think that the offense and the quarterback in particular did a good job.
I agree, because you're dealing with who's there to catch the ball right now, and right now it doesn't look like anybody.
Honestly, Jim, I thought that they were going to maybe emulate the Patriots and take their tight ends and maybe do some creative things with that, and they may do this.
They still may,
because you have a couple of big targets. I was disappointed in the sense that I know that Zach Miller caught a couple, at least one or two. Shaheen didn't seem to be in there much at all, and he wasn't targeted, I don't think. But even without him, Daniel Brown, another pretty good pass-catching tight end, I didn't see him at all. And
the comment that I'm looking at here, talking about adding Adam Shaheen, wasn't Adam Shaheen supposed to be the big red zone target who made game-changing plays in situations such as 1st and goal from the 6 in the final minute? Is he a result of bad scouting by Ryan Pace or bad coaching by John Fox's staff?
Well, let's give him more than one game. To get into that.
Let's as they say, that one game is not much of a sample size.
Well, we may have another, and let me finish this thought.
Finish the thought. We'll break.
But the guy that they picked up from the Ravens on the waiver wire, Mizell, I think you say his last name, he may be another weapon out of the backfield because he's not a big guy, but he's fast. He's a good pass catcher, and he may be somebody else that they will eventually work into the game plan.
Okay. Break time.
You're listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network on Wednesday, September the 13th, the year 2017, with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. And this is Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now back to Armchair Experts with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro.
What else do we can we deal with?
Well,
with the Bears.
Well, I would say this. I wanted to talk about the officiating, and I said to you on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to knock the I'm not going to knock them totally, but I saw almost the whole Bears and Falcons game. I watched a lot of the Green Bay-Seattle game. I saw the highlights of the Philadelphia-Washington game. I watched some of the Dallas-New York game that evening, and I've been out of the football watching loop pretty much for the last 5 years because I've been working weekends almost exclusively. And now that I am not, I'm wondering if this has been going on a long time because there were a lot of bad calls, and they came at crucial times for almost every. And they were critical. The call against Akeem Hicks, I'm not so much going to fault the call. I really got aggravated with the announcers who kept saying, "Well, you can't take 2 steps and hit the quarterback," and you could clearly see he took no steps. He was already in the air. But the announcers repeated several times, "Yeah, you can't do that. You can't take 2 steps and then hit the quarterback." Well, that's not what he did. And it cost the Bears. Bears would have stopped the drive right there. Ended up the Falcons completed the drive with a 3-point field goal, which maybe wouldn't have, maybe would or wouldn't have put a different face on the game. The Bears could have at least tied with a field goal then at the end. The other thing, though, it wasn't just all I'm not looking at all bad calls on the Bears, against the Bears. On the final time the Bears had the ball, I think Bobby Massey is the right tackle.
Yeah.
He, at least 2 times that I saw, had a, I would call it a false start. He didn't start forward, but he dropped his right foot into the backfield prior to the snap twice.
They missed one call.
He did it twice, two
missed,
plays in a row.
Yeah, they missed one call that should have been called on the final drive.
And they missed both of those. They switch over into I watched a little of the Philadelphia-Washington game and saw a call. I cannot believe that the guy from the NFL that they have up in the TV booth defended, because Kirk Cousins clearly came forward with the pass. If you saw the shot looking at the quarterback from the defense, it could have gone either way. But when you saw the shot from behind Cousins, he clearly went forward, and I think he actually let go of the ball about this much and it hit the defensive player either in the shoulder pad or the helmet. The Eagles picked the ball up, ran it into the end zone. The officials on the field called it a touchdown, and it was upheld on the replay. And I'm like, how was that upheld? It was unbelievable. It cost the Redskins not the game, but a touchdown.
Yeah.
But then there was plays in the other game, some non-call pass interference. The Packers basically mugged one of the Seahawks wide receivers in the end zone with an official standing from me to the coffee pot away. I mean, two guys all over the guy in the corner of the end zone. No call at all. In the Giants Cowboys game, Janoris Jenkins is covering Des Bryant on a sideline pattern towards the end zone. They drop a flag. They show the replay. Des Bryant basically never even touched him. I mean, they put it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw that one.
Yeah.
I went. How could you call that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The only thing I could say is there were at least half a dozen calls that even in the Bears game again, we had a defensive holding penalty on Cooper, and they showed the replay, and even the announcers were saying, "Where's the holding?" Now he's 31. You had Demps, who's 21 in the field, and sometimes the officials do
mix the numbers
up. But when they showed Cooper, there was no holding.
Yeah.
So it was not a strong start for the officials, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, John, I'll take a little more.
There you go. And put a little bourbon in there.
Yeah,
too,
could
Jen?
you do that? That's enough.
That
Jen.
would be good.
That's enough. Yeah, a little Tennessee cream.
So, Jim, overall though, with the Bears game, did you watch the whole thing?
I had it
on.
In
and out?
I had it on. And I was in and out.
Who was there anybody that you saw in the times that you were watching that? Thanks, John. Was there any? Oh, sorry, man. Was there anybody that stood out to you that you didn't expect a big performance out of?
Well, it was nice the way they used Cohen.
Thank you, John.
It was nice the way they used Cohen. I came in hoping that Glennon would at least be adequate, and he was more than adequate.
I agree.
You know,
I agree.
Defensively, Akeem Hicks. I expected something, but I think you got more than what I expected, and certainly I think signing a nice extension gave him great motivation.
Well, the thing I did notice, now that you mentioned Akeem Hicks, though, is I thought one of the things that happened toward the end of the game is the Bears' defense sort of wore down a little bit.
Yeah.
And
I didn't look at the time of possession, so I don't know.
My guess would be that even though the Bears did a good job of possession, the Falcons had at least 3 drives of 11 plays or better.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that the time of possession game might have been fairly equal, or possibly Atlanta might have had an edge on the time of possession. But they did seem to wear at least the big defensive lineman for the Bears down a little bit. Mm-hmm. Hicks looked like at the end he was sort of gassed. And one of the things I did notice that some of our backup defensive linemen wouldn't mind seeing some of those guys get even more reps than they're getting. Roy Robertson Harris looks good.
Looks really good.
Yeah. And again, I'm waiting for Jonathan Bullard. I think they said took a step, but we're waiting to see a little bit more from him in the game.
Okay.
I think Leonard Floyd, if he's not going to be a star, is going to be at least a solid player.
Nice job against the run.
Yep.
And I'm going to have to see if I can find this too. Shaheen, he only had 8 snaps, so he really wasn't out on the game for anything.
They didn't have him in the game too much.
Really not on the game for anything. Time of possession: Atlanta 30 minutes and 34 seconds. The Bears 29 minutes and 26 seconds.
So
Nothing.
No.
Nothing terribly. Drastic between the two.
No. Well, think of it this way, though, Jim. If you wanted to say that in a tight game like this, that the team with the most explosive weapons ultimately wins, that's what happens. That's what happened. You have Devontae Freeman and Julio Jones on the Falcons side. You basically, maybe you could say you have Tariq Cohen on our side, because I would say this: as good a back as Jordan Howard is, he's not like a long ball threat or anything. So we had one real threat versus two really good ones for them, and ultimately they end up winning the game.
Yeah. When your leading receiver Cohen, 8 receptions, 47 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he's dinking and dunking them, but that's part of the plan. There's nobody else to throw to.
Yeah.
So that's
well, you know what? I mean, it's this is not by any means a good football team. Is it a bad football team? No, not really.
no, but I think it's
Go ahead.
it's a team on the rise, I'd say.
Yeah.
The
It's a team that's going to improve.
The thing that they did a good job of adding some depth, but let's hope that we don't have to use it, because again, if we have some injury bugs,
Jarrell Freeman now.
yeah, that's not going to help us. Well, did you notice though? What I did like to see is that when they formed the practice squad, they definitely had Danny Trevathan and Jarrell Freeman in mind, because they kept Timu and Anderson. So if those guys go down, you got Kwiatkowski and Jones, but you need somebody behind them.
Yeah.
So we have basically 6 inside linebackers available, and there's a reason for that, because, as you say, Freeman's got the concussion issue, and
Peck.
Oh, he's got. Oh, okay.
He's got an issue with the pec muscle.
Okay.
So he may be down for a while.
All right.
I like the fact that love to see if Gentry can suddenly be the deep threat or the deeper threat.
Mm-hmm.
He showed a little bit of it during the preseason, but that was with working with Trubisky.
Well, obviously Lennon has got and both Glennon and Trubisky are on-target quarterbacks, and I don't think that Glennon has any weakness as far as throwing a long ball. It's just that because of the way preseason is played, Trubisky and who am I thinking of? Gentry were teamed up more than Glennon and Gentry. I don't even know if Glennon and Gentry were teamed up at all. But no, I don't see why those two can't make a connection. And I was really surprised when they even exposed Gentry to waivers and that he went through.
I was shocked too. I was shocked at that too. I would have expected him to be picked up. There was a couple of other things, and I didn't get a chance to. I didn't get a chance to look at it too. Just kind of going off on college football. I did watch most of the Michigan State game, and pleased at the way they've improved. But I think again the Big Ten East is going to be a division that's going to eat their young.
Mm-hmm. Were you pleased with the way Ohio State got their butts knocked around?
Whoosh! Whoa, boy!
Yeah.
Whoa, boy!
Yeah. I don't think this week in practice isn't going to be a pleasant one for the Buckeyes.
No. And I was listening to somebody talk about the fact that Ohio State coach says he doesn't have there's not a quarterback issue here. Yes, there is.
With Ohio State?
Yeah.
Well, I thought Barrett was the clear guy.
Yeah, he's saying he's the clear guy, but of course, then again, you got an issue. You got an issue with your receivers. I noticed Baker Mayfield apologized for celebrating too much.
Celebrated too much.
Well, yeah, when you try to take your flag out when you're on the road and plant it in the middle of the field. Of course, then again, if you're trying to plant it on an artificial turf surface, it really doesn't work.
Rough, right?
That really doesn't work too well. But he apologized.
Is that a commentary on your average college student?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Okay, we're going to bury this in the artificial turf.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing that I didn't look at, and I forgot to look at, was I know Notre Dame lost.
Oh, they did. I didn't even.
They lost, and I forgot to look Sunday and go back and look because apparently Brian Kelly in his post game news conference. Well, Notre Dame. I love Rosenblum, Mr. Sarcastic. Notre Dame interim coach Brian Kelly.
Interim coach, yeah.
Doesn't seem to find post-game answers any more successfully than he finds ways to win one-possession games. And somebody was talking about college football today, and they brought up the fact with Notre Dame and Brian Kelly, and the fact that once again he finds himself in the hot seat. And the comment was, it's real easy to get fired when you're a jerk.
Yeah, that's true. Who did they lose to?
Georgia.
Well, I mean, Georgia's a good team.
Good team.
They are actually though. They're starting a redshirt quarterback because of injury to their starter. Mm-hmm. So you have a redshirt. I think Florida State was starting a redshirt quarterback. But Georgia was starting obviously their second team quarterback. And were they playing it in Georgia or were they playing at South Bend?
I got to remember. I can't remember. This comes from being unprepared.
I thought, you know what, Jim? I thought that Notre Dame finally had gotten smart and they were going to go back to, pound them, on the ground football, which is Notre Dame football. And they've done that, but that's not working either, I guess.
No. And again, Kelly's.
Now, did Michigan just squeeze by Cincinnati or something?
The game was really closer than it looked. Mm-hmm. Michigan scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, but up until that point, it was like, are you out there? Are you awake? Let me go back. It was they really kind of blew it open in the fourth quarter.
Well, isn't that what Ohio State basically did with Indiana the week before?
Yeah.
So, who looks like they're
Michigan? Michigan. It was 24-14 after 3 quarters, and the final was 36-14.
Okay.
And it was generally viewed as pretty much a sluggish ball game.
Okay. Now, who's the top teams right now in the Big Ten? Penn State and Wisconsin? Is that what most people are saying?
Wisconsin's a good ball club.
Yeah, Wisconsin has pretty much over the last I don't know how many seasons been up there. I haven't looked at them too closely yet, but I've heard a couple of people talk about the fact that Iowa looks good this year in the West. Yeah, we'll see. Notre Dame, I guess, decided just to call the game in on Saturday, with Duke. Duke just trounced them.
You mean Northwestern?
That's right. Northwestern is what I meant.
Yeah, and it was kind of kind of interesting, and of course it's very typical of. I think Pat Fitzgerald, his comment on the game was, "It's all mine.
Mm-hmm.
It's all mine.
Well,
it's all my fault."
As it should be.
As well it should be. You don't prepare your team, this is what happens.
That's for darn sure.
Yeah.
What do you think? Where is Dwayne Wade going to start the season with us? And
I think if they can find a buyout, he's gone. if they can work out a buyout, he's gone. He's going to go either, the rumors are the Lakers, the Cavs, or back to Miami. And there was some story about his kids registering for school back in Miami.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
That. He's Dwayne. I don't think he's a dumb guy, but I guess $23 million contract will probably make you dumb real quick. But why he even signed with the Bulls in the first place? I couldn't figure that out.
Jimmy Butler. That's
Yeah.
really what it was. I think he saw somebody or something in Jimmy Butler that he felt he could bring along, and he would like to work with. But that one, we all know how that turned out to be.
Yeah.
I can't remember what book, over under on the number of Bulls victories this year, 21.5.
Okay.
Worst
I don't know.
worst team in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that'll be right, but we'll see.
Yeah.
What amazes me, I saw, I was reading something, and they were talking about the Timberwolves, and hey, Jimmy Butler, the new star of the Timberwolves, and I'm thinking, no, that's not the way Thibodeau does things.
And I don't think he necessarily Butler wants that.
No, I mean when he's with Tibbs, he's definitely a ball player.
Yeah.
He's not a leader. He's not a star. He understands. He's there to play basketball.
Yeah.
And solid basketball. Yeah. So he is. That's where he's at.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that, I'm sure, as we go along. I saw it was interesting that the Blackhawks are 12-1 to win the Stanley Cup this coming season. And Nashville, who went to the finals last year, is 14-1.
Was there any reasoning along with that?
None that I could see. Penguins and Oilers are the two top.
Well, the Oilers, the Oilers are a team that's sort of coming on.
And they're
strong.
on the rise. They're on the rise.
With the seasons being what they are, and what do you think about the idea that the NHL has said none of our players are playing in the Winter Olympics? That's got to make the TV execs really happy, huh?
Oh, I'm sure they're thrilled right now.
Yeah.
And, none of that. We're not taking 2 weeks off for anything. But I'm going to be interested to see if, and I think a couple of them may have already announced it, a couple of the foreign players say, well, you're not playing in the Olympics, but by God, I am. For my country.
That's interesting.
So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I wish I could remember who it was. Huh.
Well, honestly, though, Jim, I'm sort of, after the Dream Team did their thing, and you sort of got to see how professional players would fare in the Olympics, you know what? I'm sort of tired of watching professionals play in the Olympics. Honestly. I'd rather go back to the days of non-professionals in the Olympics, regardless of what
back into the old days.
Well, regardless of what the other countries do, why the heck do we have to? Why do we have to send pros? I mean, it's basically it's. I don't get it.
80. Let me think back here. 92 was the Dream Team, right? Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan.
Yeah, probably 92.
92. 88. 88, they went to the Olympics, the basketball team. Decent team, and had to struggle to finish third, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going on a DePaul trip out east to see a game in the Garden. And the first game, it was a doubleheader in the Garden. The first game was DePaul and St. John's. Not St. John's, DePaul and Fordham. And there wasn't many people there,
Mm-hmm. Who cared?
But the second game was Georgetown versus St. John's.
Okay.
So the place was packed.
Mm-hmm.
And we were down in one corner, and it was in the corner where the Georgetown bench was. And we weren't back in back in the rafters. We were down close enough with that. every time John Thompson stood up on there was some guy behind me going, "Yeah, John Thompson, go for the gold and come back with the bronze."
Oh, jeez.
You know, that's all we heard the whole night. Every time Thompson stood up.
Yeah. Sometimes, Jim, I wonder if this whole idea of sports has been sort of skewed, if you want to. I'll say that. You know, I liked it. I remember when I was a kid, say 10, 11 years old. I don't think it was the Sun-Times. It was probably maybe like the Daily News or one of those. You'd look through the sports section and say it was winter. Okay, maybe the Bulls were around at the time. I don't know. So you'd have something on the Bulls. You'd have some college. And then you get toward the spring when the basketball season was, nobody really cared anymore. You'd see, Northwestern JV baseball box scores and things like that. It would be, once in a while there'd be a little article about the Schwaben Kickers soccer game. So I liked it a lot better back then.
Back in the old days.
It was more sporting, if you want to put it that way. Yeah. God.
And there was more variance, and there were columnists. I mean, my dad would bring the Daily News home, and he picked up the Daily News on the way home. And my God, I'd always read John Carmichael, The Barber Shop.
Yeah.
That was always interesting. And when he'd get the Tribune, Dave Condon was, and when those times when his daughter would write it, no matter how old she was still 11 years old.
Yeah.
And it was always fun columns. And although I'm just glancing here, I just pulled up the Evening Tribune today, and Steve Rosenblum, not always as Mr. Sarcastic as he is, he decided to do a column today on who's Chicago's most electrifying athlete. And right now he's got his nominees as Patrick Kane, Javi Baez,
and Tariq Cohen. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. He said the Bears rookie M80 who lit up Soldier Field.
Wow. I'm telling you. A lot to live up to.
Yeah.
Did you see the thing, I don't know, this might have been a week ago, where the guy who writes the column or the stories about the Cubs for the Sun-Times,
Whitmire.
Yeah, he was talking about how it's just like middle-aged white men that disapprove of Javi Baez and his, and I'm like, really? I said personally, we were talking Gary Paulson, was an outstanding college baseball player and still a good softball player at 50. Joins us once in a while for coffee, and Gary is a guy who gets it. And his dad, Ken, comes as well. And Ken was an accomplished athlete. And I said, Javi Baez, what are they talking about? First off, I don't really, I don't know, maybe some people are saying he's a hot dog. I don't particularly see him as a hot dog. He may, I don't know, maybe you could take him that way, but what I see is a guy who's a smart ball player who really hustles almost. I mean, I don't see the guy ever not hustling on the field. So what are you really talking about? Are you making stuff up here or what? Who's got the objection?
Old white guys.
Old white guys, yeah.
That's
so, and so this old white guy thinks that hey, I like Javi Baez as a ball player.
I do too. I love the hustle. I love the flash.
Yeah.
I think about, you talk about that. Just made me think of a story that my dad told me when he was a kid going out to Wrigley Field. And Rabbit Moranville.
Oh, wow. That's a long time
was
ago.
playing.
Oh, man.
This is back.
That's a real long time ago.
I mean, we're talking.
Rabbit Moranville?
We're talking 80 years ago.
Yeah.
Or more. almost 90 years ago now.
Yeah, I would say 90 years.
In the 20s.
Yeah.
And again, keep in mind, my dad was born in 1913. So, okay. But he said, talk about the way, he would talk about the way the players, watching the game when I was growing up, and we'd sit and watch the game in the 50s and the 60s, how serious everyone was. Nobody looked like they were having fun. And he told me a story about going out there in Rabbit Moranville, who probably never, the question was Rabbit Moranville, or the comment was, how many times did Rabbit Moranville take a sober breath?
That's yeah.
When he was out on the field. But, my dad talked about there was a play. He said there was a play where a guy tried to steal the base, and Moranville took the tag, came down, tagged him, and fell over and sat on him, and wouldn't let him get up. And back in those days, that was before the bleachers were built in left field and right field. So essentially, it was out to the wall there. And just like now, except people sit up on the roof and pay a lot of money for that. People would be in the apartment windows.
Yeah, watching the game.
And he said, and there was there was a blonde in the second floor leaning out watching the game with that. Moranville came up, tagged him out, sat down on the guy, wouldn't let him get up, turned around, looked out the outfield and saw her hanging out the window looking at that, and he waved and went, "Yoo-hoo, hiya, honey." And she immediately slammed the window shut.
Those guys were, I guess you would say, they were colorful. There was a lot of them who were hot dogs, if you want to use that term. And I don't think, I always get a kick out of they'll talk about trash talking in basketball or football and bench
jockeying in baseball. God,
it's been that way forever. I read recently this baseball season though. Things are going to change though, because the old rules, not going to hit her down after he's been successful against you, and this and that. We're in a more enlightened age. And then you read an article somewhere else, and these guys, the pitcher will be like, "You think that guy's going to get away with that? You think I'm going to? He's going down." It's so as much as they want to try to, in their eyes, sanitize the game, that ain't happening.
Is that what you referred to as, what was that term you used last time? Microaggression?
Yeah, microaggressions.
Microaggression.
We don't want any microaggressions.
We don't want any microaggressions. No.
Yeah.
No. So.
That's right.
There were other things I wanted to get into today. There was a interesting feature a couple of weeks ago in Time magazine, and there was an interesting and I missed the show, and I'm going to have to go back and see if I can find it on demand on HBO on Real Sports, talking about travel leagues and kids sports.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting article.
I wish you would bring that one.
And let's talk. Are we getting together next week, John?
It's up to you.
Up to me. Oh, geez. Now I got to make the decision.
Well, Jim,
because are you involved with the Junior Rebels? No. I know you have been in the past.
There is no Junior Rebels right now, and so that'll be a very interesting topic, because what I would say, and I'm not going to get into chapter and verse on it, is I thought Junior Rebels was a good idea when it was started, but the more I've thought about it, I would just say, let kids, and not just Norwich or Harwood Heights kids, but all kids, let them play Little League and see if they like the game. All of this travel stuff is a lot of baloney, and but I'd like to see what that article has to say, because I am sick of hearing how much people pay to have their kids play travel ball.
I mean, you talk about, and surprisingly, the most expensive sport, lacrosse.
Well, Jim, think about this, and John, because you've been both, we've all been around a long time.
Polite way of saying we're old.
We're old. You're welcome. okay, if your son say he's a football player and he knows he wants to play football, so, and you love it, I mean, no problem, I'm going to pay whatever the fee is to put him on a travel team. Great. But how about that kid? Well, he's not so sure, but he wants to try it. You as a parent know he's unsure because you've talked about this. So I'm not going to put out big money to put him on a travel team when he doesn't know. He's not going to go on a travel team because he's not sure if he likes the sport or not. So you're acing out a lot of kids who might try whatever sport you want to name, but they're not ready. Competition is great. You got to have competition, no question. But they're not ready to make that sort of a commitment. And so you're acing so many kids who don't even get a chance to stick their toe in the water and try the sport out.
Yeah.
You're acing them out with these travel teams.
And you're losing the ability. The kids are losing the ability for and it probably hampers them down the road, their social interaction, because they're locked into this small little world with their adult coaches.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to be kids, you know. And it was an interesting article, and I'll bring that along. And if I get a chance, I'll try to find that article on or try to find that piece on Real Sports on HBO and go back and look at it, because it really, when you think of it, travel sports for kids, a $15 million.
Holy mackerel.
Maybe more on that, on what it cost. And I mean, there were some phone calls. They were talking about this. They were talking about this on the air on The Score, because Bernstein's kid plays travel hockey, travel baseball. But he said, you know, we're a neighborhood team, essentially, but they travel. And he said, talk about going to, or somebody called and talked about going to a baseball tournament with a travel team. And there's kids staying at the hotel with their coaches and their parents offering themselves as free agents to anyone who needed them.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Jim, because there was a travel team here in the area and coached by a guy that I have mutual respect for, very good baseball man. This was baseball. And once in a while, they'd play like on Saturday evenings at the park. So once in a while, I'd be going by the park, and if I saw them playing, I'd stop and watch a little bit. I wouldn't watch any other Little League type baseball other than them. But this guy, really good coach, and the kids played the game the right way. But on the flip side of that, I knew I was friendly with somebody who had a child on the team, and this kid ended up being sort of shunted aside when the team found a better player at that person's position. And what happens is, okay, you start out as a starter maybe, and your parents had paid big bucks to have you play, and as you say, all of a sudden they stumble on a guy who's better than you at your position, who's willing to jump from one place to another. And now, instead of getting that experience of playing, you're riding the pine.
Yeah.
So it's it's to me, I really don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it.
It was interesting, though, that they were kind of talking about that, and one guy called and he said that he and his brother both played travel sports. I can't remember the call or what they played, but he said my brother was better than me, and he said my father was really happy that we both were interested, but when I told my dad, you know what, I'm not that good and I'm not that interested, he said my dad didn't push me. He said, okay, that's good. He said, you tried it, you found this wasn't for you, that's fine. You would get, in some instances, you would get the parents who would continue to push the kid and push the kid and push the kid.
Jim, when I became a parent, because obviously my kids are my stepkids,
right?
Obviously I'm a guy who loves sports. But when it came time for those kids to be of age where they would be thinking about it, you'll drop over, and maybe John will drop over. But Mary and I were talking, and we said, well, maybe the kids will play soccer. 'Cause we thought that might be a good intro to sports for them if they wanted to do that. Because we looked at it, I think, as not being super strenuous as far as, you could sort of dip your toe in and see if you liked it. But I said to myself at the time, if these kids don't want to play, I'm never going to say a word about it. If they don't want to play anything, because my feeling is you cannot push this. If they show that they want to play, then you can sort of, I'm not going to say push, but you can try to steer them in the right direction. But those parents who push are doing the wrong thing. Do you want to? Would you like to help your kid appreciate the game? Do you want to put your kid in what you think is a good position to help them improve their game? Sure, I understand all that, but to push them, especially if they don't want to do it, no, there's no way.
I understand. I could relate to that when I had that period of time, 7-8 years, when I was a stepdad too, with the two boys. The oldest boy, 7th grade, I think. He wanted to go that summer. He wanted to go to Ray Meyer's basketball camp.
Okay.
Well, actually, he wanted to go to Ray Meyer's basketball camp because his best friend was going.
Mm-hmm.
But competitive sports was not something Tom was interested in.
Okay.
I always, we always said about Tom once he got out of grade school and went to high school and went to Whitney Young. Well, Tom graduated in the 8th of the class that made the top 7/8 possible. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
But his interest that he developed there was the fact that he went in. He was a ROTC boy, and at Whitney Young there was Naval ROTC. Tom went into the Navy, and as far as I know, I've lost touch with Tom, but as far as I know, he's a career man.
Yeah, that's good. That's fine.
And our friends Gib and Michelle, by the way, who've moved to Florida.
Yeah, that's what you were saying.
Yeah, they've moved down to Milton, Florida, just near Pensacola, and
just in time for the hurricane.
Missed everything.
Good.
Missed everything. In fact, it was Harvey caught them worse than what Irma did. In fact, I had kind of laughed yesterday. I was looking at AccuWeather, and I have their city up there, and I was looking at the radar, and as the storm was moving north, I saw a green band to the west of them and a green band to the right to the east of them, and clear weather in between. And I looked online, and Gibbs said, I think we're okay. I'm out in the back grilling.
That's good. That's good.
But Michelle's oldest son, Carl, dropped out of school, had all sorts of issues and everything else. Carl's an avionics electronic technician in the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard gave him his GED, so he got his high school. He studied at Vincennes University and another school because he needed all this electronics and engineering. So, he developed his forte through the service, and I say God bless.
Yeah, God bless is right.
God
Not
bless.
everybody is made to play a sport, and not everybody is made to be a scholar, and I think that's one thing we've sort of lost sight of, in a sense, in the country. And
I know. When you look at the numbers, and we'll talk about that next time we get together, and we're going to get together in 2 weeks. John
2
went
weeks?
2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay.
26th, okay. All right.
Guys, before we
Oh, okay.
before we go,
I thought it was last week. I thought it was next week. What do I know?
I have a question to see if you guys remember this, because I certainly can't. I'm trying to think of the name of a hurricane. And when we were kids, I would say 9, 10, 11 years old, there was a big hurricane that hit, I want to say, the Gulf Coast and affected Texas, I think, more than anything. And then I remember it well because it was the first time I realized that this thing could spawn other storms going up. And and there was severe weather, tornadoes and whatnot, going all the way up, probably into the bottom part of our state due to this storm.
Oh,
and I wanted
I don't
to,
remember the name.
But you remember the incident?
I remember the incident that
yeah.
there was some severe weather.
Yeah.
In fact, it was kind of funny that Facebook, when they come up with their, on this day, sharing your memories, and I don't know if it was yesterday or today, but I don't know how many years ago it was, maybe 2014, there was a hurricane in the Gulf, and my cousin Christine, who you probably met at the wedding,
Probably.
the good-looking brunette, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
her mom and her grandmother were living in Galveston at the time. Her mom was 74 and her grandmother was 97.
Okay.
Grandma outlived mom.
Wow.
And they had to get out of there. And I had posted something about I'm hoping that my 74-year-old cousin and her 97-year-old mother found safety.
Well, Mary Georgianis, I don't know if you saw the post. I think it was today or
Yeah.
just recent, where she
Was
I think it
looking.
was Gloria Huffman, Walt McNeil,
Janelle Richardson and somebody else. Janelle was fine.
yeah,
Janelle was fine.
and Walt, I think, said everything was cool. I think they all, some of them might have gotten some rain or
Yeah.
a little bit of an effect, but not much.
Yeah.
So,
No, Janelle, and it was nice because there was a way on Facebook that somebody set something up so you could check in and let people know you were safe.
Mary has become the den mother of the class.
Mother Mary has been the den mother of the class of 1969.
Yeah, she has become that for sure. So
All right. I think we're going to get out of here. If you see her on Friday night, if you go for homecoming is Friday night, by the way.
I know, but is she coming there?
I don't know if you see her. I'm not. We have other plans, so. And John is shaking his head.
Well,
so.
you know what? For once, because we don't have our duties anymore, I'll actually be able to see who is there.
I know. That's what I was going to say. If you see her, tell her hello.
I go to the game, the last home game, and I ran into some people I knew. They were there to see their daughter. She's on the Palms. So after halftime, they left. So I'm okay. I'll settle down and watch the game. Who comes popping up but Pat Scharf? So never saw very much of the game at all because Scharf and I are just shooting the breeze.
Well, it was fun. Just talking about other classmates. Saturday night, we went out to the Pheasant Run in St. Charles, and Ron Onesti
Yeah, sure.
is booking concerts in their theater there
Okay.
now, small things, and he's got several of them coming up. But the first one he did with this was Songs and Stories with the Buckinghams,
Okay.
which was fun.
Yeah.
A fun night, all acoustic stuff, a lot of stories, a lot of fun, a lot of laughing, and I posted a picture of us and that we were there, and I see a little note, a little comment on Facebook from Tim Caravia,
Okay.
Bill's son.
Oh, Bill's son.
Bill and Lisa's son. Gee, I wish I would have known that. My dad and I would have come.
Jim, if you see Ron, tell him I said hello. I think he'll remember me. He, back in the day when he was in the uniform jersey business,
Yeah.
I did some business with him. He was always very responsive. He would get things done in short order. A lot of times when your season ends and you're going to the Nationals or whatever, and you might need a new set of jerseys because you may have picked up a guy or two to go that are new. I mean, within a couple weeks' time, he would come through for you. And he used to run a show. The name of his outfit was Softball City. He used to run a show. I don't know how many years he did it, but he'd do a show in the winter over at the Biagio's on Central.
Oh yeah.
And take I don't know if they have a banquet room or
Yeah,
I
they
forgot
do.
how it was
They
set
do.
up, but
They do.
yeah, they would do it there.
What?
John's
Yeah, and they've
Four
got
banquet
yeah,
rooms.
yeah,
and
yeah. Yeah, I've been been to things there.
So if you run into Ron, just tell him I said hey.
I didn't get a chance. I was hoping to get a chance to talk to him and actually bring up and see if he remembered. But they have he's going in 17 different directions right now. He's at St. Charles introducing that. He had Vince Neil from Motley Crue at the Arcada in downtown St. Charles. They've got a kind of a speakeasy type club on the third floor of the building in St. Charles, where they had somebody doing I think a Louis Armstrong kind of tribute up there with that. He was plugging the fact that on Sundays he does an Italian dinner with gravy, and he referred to it as meat sauce gravy, and the Italians in the audience were going, "That's still gravy."
Yeah.
You know, he says, no, he says, I distinguish it that way. He was talking about that. He took off. He took off right after he introduced the Buckinghams to get back down to St. Charles. He was taking off the next morning because they were. He was responsible. Onesti Productions was putting on an Italian fest in Hoboken, New Jersey.
Oh, geez.
And he had to get out there. He's just ready to open up a new place in Evanston. Again, probably the similar thing with a small theater and something else. He's calling it Rockin' Ravioli. I love the name.
Okay.
I love the name, and again, he's got sort of that speakeasy type thing on another floor in the building. So this guy's always going.
Yeah.
Good shows coming up for old time music, old time rock and roll. Jim Peterick and the Ides of March Saturday night. And he's got the Crying Shames in late October and the New Colony 6 in November.
Excellent.
And there was a guy I worked with at Weebolt's who was in the New Colony 6, and I think I might go that night.
Good. That sounds good.
Sounds like fun. All right, we overdid it.
Yeah. You know, Ron and I are very, very good friends because Ron knew me very, very well when I was with WJJG.
Oh, okay.
So if you ever see him...
if I ever get a chance to talk to him.
Yeah, but tell him John DeVita from Joe Gentile's WJJG, and he'll remember me because we did a lot of remotes. We went to a lot of out there, and I think it was on Addis.
The Italian Fest in
Addison? Italian Fest, yes.
Still does it.
Yep. And then up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for the Italian Fest up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
He still does the Italian Fest in Addison. So
we did
a lot of opportunity.
We did a lot of remotes with Ron. He was a super person. I really enjoyed being with him.
That was our name dropping for today.
Yeah.
I had to laugh. By the way, Michael Lombardi was on with Spiegel and Parkins during the day, and he was dropping all these names back and forth. I don't know who it was if it was Spiegel said to him, he said, "Do you ever hurt yourself picking up all those names you drop?"
Ooh, okay.
All right, we're going to get out of here. We've overdone it again. Once again, we come in having no idea what we're going to talk about, and we go almost an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm waiting for the music. All right, there's the music. Time for us to get out. Hope you had fun. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Until then, we are Taillights.
You have been listening to Armchair Experts from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Wednesday, September the 13th on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network with Jim Leon and Rich Massaro. This broadcast was directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS FM Norwich and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Tuesday, September the 12th, the year 2017. Until next time, friends, please be safe, and thanks for listening. And this is Radio Disney 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich Illinois.